Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Game Changer Chat. I'm your host, Zakiya, and today we're going to be talking about racial equality. And I have some very special guests who are professionals and are going to be talking about their perspective on the whole conversation. We have Nyanza Moore, Esquire, Stacy McLean, Autumn Cowles, and I'm so excited to have them all with us today. I will ask everyone who's watching right now, drop in the chat where you're tuning in from, where in the world you're tuning in from, because we would love to know who you are, where you're tuning in from. We're so excited to have you with us. Nyanza, my goodness, I feel like I know her because I have been following her life for almost over 15
Don't
years.
Tell me how old I am.
Following her. I'm not, because we're about the same age. But
my birthday's coming up. So.
Oh, happy early birthday!
Thank you.
I start following her. Let's see. Since the beginning of this, there's a show called Starting Over. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but it's the beginning before all this. I don't want to call it trash TV, but the reality TV that's on now, this is like real good reality TV. When they wanted to have someone's life, people's life, when they wanted to change careers and change their lives, Nyanza was on it, and I was like, she reminds me of me. She had a strong personality, but she was just beautiful personality, and I just could not keep but follow her life and Google her every now and then to find out what she was doing, and her good vibrations just vibrated through the TV, and so that's why I really, when I reached out to her, I felt like I knew her. So without further ado, I would just like for her to just tell us, for those of us who don't know you and know what you've been doing all these years, tell us a little bit about your background, and since then she will tell you that she's been a staple on TV since then. She couldn't give it up. She's been an anchor, and she's just done a lot of things. So can you please just tell us who you are and what you've been up to?
Sure. And thank you so much, Zakiya. I really appreciate that. I was on Starting Over, which was the very first daytime television show that was on 5 days a week. It was a soap opera. It was like a reality soap opera. It was on 5 days a week for 1 hour every day on daytime television. And it was a fantastic experience. And like Zakiya said, we were on before all of the other shows came on. And it was produced by Buda Murray Productions, who created The Real World. I was an original character. And like Zakiya said earlier, I was there to start my life over. I had just been recently divorced from a professional athlete. And I decided I had to figure out what I wanted to do because I was a lawyer. And, that show was in 2003. And if you did watch the show, then you know that the gentleman that came to visit me on the show, Eric Moore, I ended up marrying him. 15 years ago, we still been married. We have 2 wonderful children, Kennedy and Lincoln. And, I'm a practicing attorney. I do property insurance litigation. I am also a television, a political commentator on a TV show called What's Your Point here in Houston, Texas on Fox 26 News. Now, that Fox 26 News satellite affiliate is not the same as Fox National. It's just a significant branch, but I'm the progressive voice on the show where we talk about local, state, national, and international politics. And I give the progressive Democratic point of view, and always from a position of making sure that I speak truth to power in the room. I've been practicing for law for 20 years, and I'm a graduate of Texas A&M University, undergraduate, and Texas Southern Law School. And, I happen to be a proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha, the Links Incorporated, and Jack and Jill. And I'm just so honored to be here. I know, and I'm a Silver Star, 26, but I'm very happy to be here. And I thank you so much, Zakiya, for having this platform. I was supposed to be on last week, but there was a little bit of a scheduling issue for me personally. So I apologize for that. I'm going to make up for it more than ever today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. And then I have my sister, Stacy, up here. We're part of a mentoring group together that Dr. Avis Jones DeWeaver is the leader of. And so I'm so happy to have her here. She's an educator. She's also a film. She's in the film industry, and she's doing a documentary right now. And so I'm so pleased to have you here. So Stacy, without further ado, please tell people about your background and more about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much, Zakiya, for having us today. So I am an educator, as Zakiya said. I'm from Los Angeles County, but I've taught across the United States. I started teaching in Washington, D.C., Denver, Los Angeles County, and then I also taught abroad in Japan and Kuwait. And I noticed a lot of issues in our education system, as you all are well aware of. And so in between my teaching career, I went to law school to with the goal of education justice. And then, however, after graduating, for me personally, it took too long. So I went back to the classroom. It took too long to change policies for me. So I went back to the classroom, and then I resigned from the teaching profession 2 years ago. And so I'm transitioning now to filmmaker. And so I'm currently in production for my first feature documentary, which is about school residency issues. So I'm trying to bridge education, film, and law with my company called School Dismissed. So really excited to be here. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you for being here. And now we have Autumn. Autumn came highly recommended by Pam Perry. When Pam was on the show, I believe last week, and she says, Zakiya, you must have Autumn on your show. She says she is a trailblazer. And when I looked up her background, I was so impressed. She's an HBCU graduate. She's a trailblazer. She owns her own business in Detroit, Michigan. Cookie dough, y'all should. It looks delicious, and she's been doing a lot of dynamic things in the community. And so, without further ado, Autumn, can you please tell us more about yourself?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. My name is Autumn Kyles. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Detroit Dough, which is an edible cookie dough manufacturer. So we distribute to entertainment venues like movie theaters, amusement parks, and stadiums. Again, like you mentioned, I'm a two-time HBCU Hampton University alum. So go Pirates. I got my bachelor's and my MBA. During that time, I was also the international second vice president of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. So ski wee to all my sorors. It was an amazing experience. It helped me to definitely become the woman I am today. Just through owning my own business, I've raised over $250,000 in funding. We've grown a lot, and due to the coronavirus, actually, we're on pause. But during that time, I found that there's so many Black women who are interested in starting their own business, and so I decided to start Proxy, which is a brand that bridges the gap between resources and Black women entrepreneurs. And I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but we know that Black women are one of the highest demographic to start businesses, yet we're the least underfunded. So that's my passion. I want to be able to help other businesses have the success that I have, and make sure that we're creating the community to help young entrepreneurs like myself grow. So I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you so much, Autumn. Before we kick off the individual questions, I just would like to talk about diversity in a broad spectrum. I posted earlier this week on LinkedIn a post about Black Lives Matter, and I had no idea that the post would go viral. I had over 30K views, and I think 800 likes or emojis towards it. And before we dig into Black Lives Matter, I just would like to know from each one of you, why is talking about diversity so important?
Zakiya, do you want to throw that to me?
Yes.
Well, I think that discussing diversity matters. I happen to be a panelist for my former university, Texas A&M University, on a Tuesday luncheon because my school is currently having a lot of issues with some of the statues that are around. Now, I went to HBCU for law school, but I did not go to HBCU for undergraduate. So Texas A&M University is one of the largest universities in the country and has a lot of issues. But when I was there, it was literally less than 0.5% Black. And the conversations that we're having right now, every Tuesday, we have Aggie conversations. And those conversations were started because the white people at the university they didn't understand the issues that were facing Black students while they were there at the university, as well as how they face issues as Black alumni from Texas A&M. When you graduate from an HBCU, you have a sense of home. When you graduate from a majority school, you don't have that same sense of home and that same sense of feeling like, let me go back home where I feel more comfortable. And so having a discussion about diversity matters, but it's not just about having the discussions with other Black people. You know, we have to have a discussion with white people. And the conversation that we have every Tuesday is with a lot of the white students and a lot of the white alumni from Texas A&M, because they need to hear us from our own perspective in an unabashed way, where we are not made to feel like we cannot speak our truth in front of them for fear of hurting their feelings. So now that the conversation is at the forefront in print and in media, it's now time for us to capitalize and use our words and the power of our words to be able to speak out what we're so afraid that will offend white people, just to be honest. You know, at the end of the day, we have to stop worrying about how they feel.
Yes.
So they can then in turn understand how it feels to be us. Oh, and by the way,
absolutely.
I was an undergraduate member at large in 1996.
Oh, yes. I knew we talked about you. So.
I mean, come on, what did you expect? Come on.
Right, yeah.
That's wonderful. That's very on target. Okay, now we're starting into the direct questions. Okay. Stacey, can you explain what you believe to be an effective strategy to diversify some of the curriculum?
Yes, so definitely I think teachers need to be more vocal, and some teachers are vocal, but the problem is a lot of teachers face retaliation, of course, if they are vocal about certain issues or, you know, things they want to see represented in the curriculum. For example, we have the National Common Core standards. However, they are problematic, in my opinion. And the way you have a standard, but the way some school districts do not allow certain curriculum to be taught is a problem. And some of that curriculum could very well fit into the Common Core, but even if it doesn't, it's important, such as Black history. And so a lot of schools will say, oh, well, we have one African American literature course. Well, that's one, and Black history is very, substantive. Like, to just say, oh, we have one course, that's not enough. That's not, a full spectrum of Black history, for example. And so you need ethnic studies, you need teachers to speak up about this. And of course you need parents, and it would be nice for students as well. And I think the climate that we're in now makes it a great opportunity where people are less scared to speak out. And so the strategy would be for teachers, I would say directly, and then also parents to support the teachers, and also go to your school districts, go to your principals, because if it's just one voice, of course, it's not going to get heard. And I've even been at schools where even if it's 20 teachers, the system is so ingrained to not help parents of color that you get dismissed. So you need a mass group of people, whether they are making demands to the school district, whether they are doing a change.org petition, running for school board. You have to make a demand. And the documentary that I'm working on now actually happened, 2011, a long time ago, but basically it's a mother who was imprisoned for sending her kids to a school in her parents' district. And so I bring that up because just 2 weeks ago, a group of community members, including students and former students of a high school in that district, got together. They did a march and they partnered with Black Lives Matter. And now they have a petition and they've created a change.org, trying to get signatures. So those are effective strategies, I think.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, since you brought up Black Lives Matter, I think this is a good time to ask all of you, what are your thoughts on Black Lives Matter? Because there have been a lot of discussion around what Black Lives Matter is and what it is not. So I would love for all three of you to weigh in on what you believe Black Lives Matter is.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question. I think the movement has definitely transformed over time, where I feel like at first it was about the stand against police brutality. It's now become this all-encompassing phrase to really talk about all of the systemic racism that we face in every corner. I'm an active member of Twitter just because all of my friends and all of my colleagues are on Twitter. And there's so many conversations about how we as Black people are affected by just about everything that goes on in our lives, from redlining all the way to now microaggressions at work, even going into the entrepreneurship conversation that we just talked about, where Black founders are not getting the funding compared to our white counterparts. So now we're talking about everything at every different angle. And I think what's really powerful about this movement now is that people are taking their own stance on what they feel like is important to them, and they're moving towards that. I feel like sometimes when we talk about movements, especially in the Black community, it's like if you're not on the front lines, if you're not protesting, you're not doing enough. Where I found, especially in this time, Black people and our allies are doing what they can in their own right. There are people who are affecting change in their own communities, in their own ways. They're not necessarily the people who are on the front lines protesting, but they're doing their part in some way. And we're seeing, micro changes in our communities that are ultimately going to affect the wave of change. So I think Black Lives Matter is an all-encompassing statement. And at every single stance in what we do in our communities, there's a way to apply that and make it powerful.
And I think what you said is very important, that people can affect change at all levels by just doing a small part, and you don't necessarily have to be protesting in the street to make effective change. I think that's very, very key. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Nyenza, would you like to chime in on what you believe Black Lives Matter is to you? Oh, we can't hear you. Oh, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes.
Okay. So Black Lives Matter is all encompassing, just like Autumn said. I think that, you have to think about Black firemen's lives matter, Black teachers' lives matter, Black lawyers' lives matter, because, I was marching in the protest in Houston with 60,000 other people for George Floyd. I hadn't been out throughout the entire COVID, but I decided to go out, and risk my health to make sure I stood up. And I noticed that there were several non-Black people holding up signs. I'm just going to say white people that were holding up signs that said, "I'm not Black, but I understand." And other signs that says, "My silence is acceptance." And I thought that it was poignant because finally, when it's just Black people talking about Black Lives Matter, we don't matter to other people. But for some reason, whenever we get the stamp of approval that our movement is now ready to, bring in everybody en masse, then it becomes more of a social justice movement, one that's more accepted. Because just 2 years ago with Colin Kaepernick, Black lives didn't matter. And matter of fact, Black people didn't matter. And they didn't want you. Just imagine if we're still Black, the same police officers that were doing bad then are still doing bad. The same police officer that ended up murdering George Floyd on television, basically, he was still doing the same thing prior to. So when you think about Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter now is a part of the massive movement conversation to where now other people want to take up their own signs and fight for our cause. Before, it seemed like white people and non-Black people were thinking, are we trying to give you all special treatment? No. just equal treatment. And I think that before, other people took over the movement, and the anarchists that were not Black, that wanted to make it basically be a bad thing to say Black Lives Matter, because in Houston, everybody started saying Blue Lives Matter, like saying that we matter all of a sudden meant that everybody else had to matter too, when actually they always mattered. And I feel like now with Black Lives Mattering, it's a part of every professional conversation. Because even as a lawyer, I remembered it back in 2005. I was a baby lawyer then. I had only been practicing maybe like 4 years, and I was representing Bank of America, and I was representing Bank of America in a small county out in Texas where they had just had the case where they drugged the Black man behind the truck. Remember that? I don't know if y'all remember that, but drug him behind the truck. It was some white men from the Klan, and I was going to that very same county just a few months later to do a hearing, and the judge had never seen a Black attorney that was representing the bank. So when I came in, I had 2 Black clerks in me. And the judge came out and said, for Bank of America. And I said, I'm president, I'm counsel for Bank of America. And he looked at me and he said, counsel, I have to be, are you sure you're counsel for Bank of America? Or do you have co-counsel that is about to come with you? Lead counsel. I said, no, sir, I'm lead counsel and the only counsel for Bank of America. He said, well, you know what? I guess I'll just be. I've never seen that before. And then he leaned back in his chair. And then, although we had a 100% winning argument, I mean, we were the bank, he denied our motion. And I understood then what it meant to be Black. So basically, Black Lives Matter now means we're just now accepting that we're here and we're voicing our concerns. It does not mean that they actually matter, though. Just not to be a naysayer, I'm just being realistic.
Thank you so much for painting that example for the people who don't get it. Thank you so much for the micro aggressions that we face every day. For when I personally have sat in a meeting, spouted out an idea, no one hears me. It's like they're literally talking over me. And then Bobby says the same idea. That's the best idea. Who's been there? Like this post if you have actually been there when that's happened. And I will say, even though, yes, you've been there. And my friends, when I come home, because they think I have a strong personality, well, Zakiya, surely you said something. Actually, I didn't. I didn't. I think about, will I be passed promotion? What will happen to me? In that moment, I didn't say anything. I'm thinking, why didn't I speak up? I should have said something. Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Right.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Stacey, before we go to the next question, do you have anything to say about Black Lives Matter?
Yes. So just the fact that, as the panel here has said, people are seeing it more now as a movement. I think prior, people were trying to attach Black Lives Matter, the organization, as a Marxist organization or some kind of hate group kind of thing. And but now it seems that it's more acceptable to even just say Black Lives Matter for all races, including Black people. And so it's nice. I'm happy to see it, and I hope we continue to break open this and explore more, because it's still surface level, but I think it's progress, and we need to keep going further, because it definitely plays out in terms of all areas of society. Let's take schools, for example. So this is a really bad example, but when I was teaching 1 year, it's an all-Black school. Most of the staff was Black, and we had a Black history program, but I also wanted to teach some Black history. And at this school, you had to say on your curriculum, we didn't have time for Black history. And so I did a super basic first grade lesson where I had a tied in art, science, and writing. And I was told, why are you doing that? And I'm like, because we're a Black school and we haven't taught any Black history. Like, just these kind of things happen on a daily basis. And so it's things that these subtle microaggressions that are just normalized. And it's not until now when people start saying Black Lives Matter that we can see it from the other side. So.
Absolutely. Thank you for that example. Adam, as an entrepreneur, can you tell us what's the toughest decision that you've had to make in these last couple of months?
Yeah, so I would say one of the hardest decisions I had to make was to close down one of our stores. So like I mentioned, Detroit Dope, we distribute to entertainment venues, so movie theaters, amusement parks, stadiums. We're currently right now at University of Michigan's Big House, Little Caesars Arena, just to kind of name a few. But we actually opened up a temporary mall location just to kind of test out what it would look like to actually be a retail store. We were doing incredible. We sold over 40,000 in 3 months for, an independent inline Black-owned store. That's really unheard of. And so we were actually at a very pivotal moment where we were going to sign a contract. And we were having some really tough discussions with our landlord about, is there going to be any pandemic relief? Have you guys thought about how it's going to look like rent-wise for us? And they were just not, they weren't willing to be flexible with us. And again, we're a small business. As much as we've been successful, we're still small and we're still growing, right? And so we had to close down shop, which was one of the very few lines of revenue that we had that was direct to consumer, right? Right now, as we know, NBA was actually the first organization to close down shop completely due to the coronavirus. So you got to think everything else followed suit. We're in movie theaters and concessions, and those things are closed, and they will probably be closed until 2021. So for us to close down our store, that meant that effectively just about 100% of all of our revenue was stopped. And I wrote an article for Cranes Detroit about why businesses would shut down in this point. I think a lot of people really, they look at business and they say, oh, you guys should persevere. You guys should stay in business. But in actuality, is it really a smart decision? Right? When you're thinking about all the costs associated with staying open, the lives that you're risking by making sure that they're staying open for a couple of bucks. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So I wrote an article for Cranes about why businesses might choose to shut down, including mine. And I think that was a tough decision, but it was smart. I'm really blessed to have been able to employ people, and those people are now, at a place where they can unfortunately have to find new employment, but at least they have that opportunity to not have to work and be exposed to the virus in one of, the hotbeds of this country for COVID-19. Again, it hurt our pockets, but, I think that it was a blessing in disguise to make sure that we're doing our part to stop the spread. And so, again, we just being transparent, we're still on pause, but I'm really thankful and I'm hopeful for what's next. And this really gives us the opportunity to stop, halt, and pivot in the right direction when it's the right time.
Thank you for that. And did you get any financial release? Did you for loans for small businesses? Were you able to?
Yeah. So great question. We actually, so Michigan in general is a great small business ecosystem. We do have a lot of great small businesses that are in the Detroit area. So a lot of our funding has actually come through in the form of grants, which is such a blessing. We're able to get just a little bit under 30,000 to stay afloat during this time. Which is, again, incredible for any business to be receiving. And then, we've been working with some state and, local organizations to get funding just to kind of pay bills at the moment.
Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. Diana, a recent article by the Washington Post claims that the trend in hiring women and minorities to their board directors is actually just a smokescreen for how non-inclusive the company leaders are. What are your thoughts about that?
That's correct. I mean, There should have been. It's a little bit disrespectful to Black women, especially, to be passed over when historically Black women have been able to be the CEOs of companies and be able to, be bankers and lawyers and judges. And I believe, and I hope that the watchers are not going to be offended by this, but I remembered when President Obama was going to have his first Supreme Court pick. And I really thought, maybe it's time for someone to realize Black women's contributions to the law. And the number of judges, Dallas County at one time had more African-American female judges than any other county in the country. And now Harris County, which is Houston, they just elected 19 Black women judges in 2018. So you have to think about it like this. If at a time when we had a Black president that was going to be able to basically appoint a Black person, a Black woman, to the board of directors, if you will, the Supreme Court of the United States, and even a Black president didn't take that opportunity to peg a Black woman, but instead chose a Latina, a Justice Sotomayor, I thought to myself, is this something that is so systemic that even our own Black president did not even capitalize on his one opportunity to ensure that an African-American woman was appointed to the United States Supreme Court? It's not like Black women aren't capable, but instead he chose another route. So when you think about if our own Black president didn't seize the opportunity to select a Black woman to be basically on the board of the directors of all law, then you really can't hold corporations to the same fire if we have somebody that could have done it for us that didn't do it for us. And that's where I believe systemic racism plays a part. We're so conditioned to believe that Black people may not be quite as capable or not as aptly prepared to do a job that it's commonplace to pass them over. So now that we're having Black women appointed to these positions and on all these boards, now it looks more like a quota to satisfy the diversity factor instead of appointing a woman for merit. It always becomes a part of the conversation. Oh, she's Black. Why does it matter that she's Black? When did Black become a part of the conversation? And so as a lawyer of 20 years, I always bring everything back to the law because, the legal field is a white man's game. Most of the judges are white males. So we get that. There's a lot of racism in the law. And when you're thinking about Black men and Black Lives Matter, well, the justice system, it's inherently racist the way it was designed. 20% of all the people. I mean, when you have more Black men and brown men incarcerated in the federal penitentiaries than men that are not Black, when we make up a small amount of the population, and when a Black man is going to get 20% a longer sentence than a non-Black man, and when you have Black men convicted of crimes that white men are not convicted of, you have to think about it. Being a Black woman elected to or selected to be on a board or be the CEO of a company, I mean, come on. I think it would be at least another 20 years before it becomes common. I mean, this is Black Lives Matter, but like I said earlier, when I said Black lawyers matter, Black teachers matter, Black scientists matter, Black professionals matter, and Black lives, that's just a generic term. They need to see us for who we are. We are the creators. We are the inventors. We are the people that are making things happen in business. And we're just not getting our due. I'm very woke to that. I told you I was going to get it. I didn't want to disappoint the people out there since I missed it.
You bringing it. You are bringing it. Woo! Thank you. Okay. Okay. I'm pretty sure there are lots of. This question is going to Autumn. Autumn, I'm pretty sure there are so many moments because you're very active in the community. You do a lot of things in your career, but can you tell us about one defining moment where you were a catalyst for change?
Yeah, so I'll actually talk about something that I've done recently. So in light of the Black Lives Matter movement, as we all know, a lot of corporations and organizations have put out their Black square on Instagram and, we're muted for Black lives. And a lot of people took that as their one sole opportunity to show that they stand with Black Lives Matter. And one thing that I absolutely love to do, even though I'm like super busy, I probably don't have enough time for it, but I'm actually a coach of a pom team here in Michigan. And I am probably one of 5 Black coaches in a very white, suburban, rich sport. And it's something that I wanted to do because when I was in high school, I believe a defining moment for myself was when I became the first Black captain of my high school's pom team. And I was able to usher in this new wave of diversity on my team as a young woman, right? And so I coach because I want to show that there can be Black people in all spaces, especially in white spaces. And so I wanted to be a representative for that, even though I might not have all the time in the world to be a coach, right? But the one thing that I noticed was the organization that runs this sport posted a Black square, no comment, and just thought that was it. And, you know, I had to try it for a while because, you know, I personally feel like I've been loud enough. I've talked enough about this. I'm tired. And, you know, Black people are entitled to feel tired about this, and they don't always have to speak up. But this was the one time I was like, I can't do it. And so I sent them a message and I was like, this is enough. What are you guys doing? We have, you know, Black girls who are on teams all over the state. And you post the Black square and you think that's enough. Of course, I got no response, right? So I sent an email. And I sent this email that I'm holding your feet to the fire. I need to know actionably, what are you guys going to do to ensure that you're affecting the change in our communities to be the leaders in terms of, you know, doing your part to eradicate systemic racism, especially in our sport. And because of that, they were able to start to have real conversations. They're now bringing in diversity teams to ensure that they're doing diversity training for their staff. They're now doing more of, you know, diversity initiatives to ensure that at every level, from the staff to the members to the coaches to now at the very highest level, their judges are more diverse. And I am hoping that within the next 2 to 3 years that we're going to see a diverse program with this specific sport, which again is super white, rich, and in Michigan, right? And I know it's small, but I know how much of a change it made for me. So if there's one more Black girl who gets the opportunity to feel how I felt and change the course of her life, and now she's, you know, 30 under 30, as powerful as she wants to be. She's the next Nyanza. She's the next Stacy. She's the next Zakiya. That's what I want to do. And if it's at this little sport in Michigan, I was going to make the change. And so I think that's in a more recent case, that's what I've been able to do.
Thank you for doing that. Really, thank you. Next question is for Stacy. How can you prepare students to become champions for DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion?
I think a lot of it has to do with training students to be advocates. And it kind of relates to what Autumn just talked about in terms of the action that she took was actually holding other people accountable. She didn't like something and she did something. Like, there's different ways that people can hold others accountable, and she chose her way to do it, and that was to send an email and to make it known. So, I mean, that's important, that's powerful, and that started a conversation, and maybe they didn't know, or it wasn't until that demand that she made that made them recognize, oh, that's not enough. So, yes, sometimes it might have to take some of our efforts, but at the same time, maintaining your own mental health when necessary, because it's not our job to teach others necessarily. They have to learn themselves. However, we can hold others accountable. And so I think, I don't know, overall, I just think if you make schools places where you're critically analyzing not only history, but current situations, because the Common Core Standards talks about creating 21st century learners, but we're not doing that. We're not critically analyzing in schools. And if we did, then we would allow students to create their own documentaries, for example, create a 10-minute documentary as an assignment. Assignments don't always have to be written. Verbal. A lot of our students would do well with verbal assignments. There's different ways to express yourself. And this is part of diversity and helping to train these new leaders, the students now, but leaders, they can be leaders now and in the future when they get older, to advocate and just be critical and not accept the status quo, because we know the school system and other systems are set up to maintain a system. And I think a lot of students of color know that, and that's why some maybe drop out or aren't engaged in school, because it's not relevant to them. But give them something that's empowering and helps them to express themselves, then that actually helps everybody in general. Because when you have a diverse workforce, whether it's in movies or let's say movies, for example, that's more money because you're reaching more people. So if you want to put it in terms of financial reason, that's why diversity is important. And so you need to start training these students at a young age to think for themselves and to ask questions. Don't just accept. Like the school system should not just teach at students. Teachers should be facilitators and allow students to speak, and we, question together.
Absolutely. Being inquisitive is not a bad thing. Asking the important questions should always be welcome. I totally agree with you, Stacey. If you're watching this, go ahead and hit like and share so other people can get this important information. Another question for you, Nyanza, you've been on TV for almost 2 decades now. So you're in front of people may not. No, it's just you've been in front of the camera for a long time. So okay, yeah. you're on a lot of platforms and people see you. So so people may not always agree with your viewpoints, and I'm pretty sure I'm just beginning to learn that people may not post kind things all the time, and then you have your haters. So how do you deal with those people who post things that are not kind and the haters? How do you deal with that?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. So this is not just okay. So my thought on all this is going to help hopefully everyone who now finds themselves in a position where people are constantly trolling you. Now, back in 2000, when I was on television, remember I was on every day, Monday through Friday, from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and syndicated all over the country and in other countries. So that was the beginning of people blogging. I had a blog. I was one of the first people to ever have a blog. And then I realized, back then you didn't know what you were going to look like on television until the season started to air. But I've always maintained that I'm the same at all times. Whatever it is. And so I never watched any of the episodes. There were maybe 150 episodes that I was on. I never watched any of the episodes because I know how I am. And so fast forward to being on Fox 26 News in Houston for the last 4 years and being the Democratic, progressive, Black woke commentator that was always there sitting next to the Daughters of the Confederacy on my right, and then to the left was the editor of Breitbart, Texas. So you can only imagine. And Fox National has a history of having people that are not necessarily progressive or democratic that follow the network. So for me personally, I've always believed that whatever your truth is, it's your truth. And whenever you give your authentic opinion about something, you have to understand that everyone has their own viewpoint. And my perception of how I perceive things is reality. Like I literally took a knee on our live show for Colin Kaepernick in support of him. And the Twitter trolls went crazy because, during our show on the network, we're live show from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. where everybody's getting ready for church. And so naturally, it's not a lot of Democrats that watch that station. They mostly watch the other stations. So they would get on and troll me all day. But what I realized was this. for the commentary that was like baiting, that wanted to just bait me into a debate, I typically ignored it. I did not change I would engage in conversation if it was something to where I felt like the person really wanted to get more of my perspective. And if it was going to be a learning situation, I didn't mind engaging. But I don't worry about what they say. And it's very important, because if you worry about what they say, you have to, number one, realize you don't know who they are. They don't know who you are. They don't know anything about you, and you will never get the opportunity to meet them in person. And sometimes people are naturally looking for a way to find fodder with something that you say. So one of the things that I'm most proud of is that in all of the panels that I've been invited to be on, and all the live, whenever they say, oh, we're going to have live, they used to take Twitter questions that were like live on the air. Oh, we have a Twitter troll going after you, Nyanza. What do you have to say to that? I'm like, oh yeah, here you go, right back at you. But at the same time, you have to make sure that whatever your position is, that you're basing your position on your research, your personal experiences, or history itself, and not just some narrow point of view that is not based in science, literature, some type of context, because you will be challenged by other people, but you should take those challenges as an opportunity to have a teachable moment. Because a lot of times people that were normally like, oh, I don't agree with that at all, they for the entire year that Colin Kaepernick was a part of the conversation, when all of that heat was going on, you had the president of the United States speaking negatively, saying anybody who takes a knee is a son of a bee. They were my cohorts on my show were agreeing with that. I was the lone Black lady on there that was like, oh, hold on, wait a minute. You cannot be afraid of being the only one in the room who can speak truth to power. And that is the best thing that you can do, because right now we have a president to where those people that are in that room around him are never speaking truth to power. And if power goes, then you will have the type of racism and demagoguery, and the fascism that's going on in the country today. So if only one person has the ability to speak power and stand on your truth without wavering, and when you believe that you are right, then it's okay to say that I believe I'm right, and maybe we have a difference of opinion. But do not let the people out there in the Twitter universe cause you to feel like maybe there's something wrong with you, when basically you're having a conversation that's a one-sided conversation. Your job is to make sure that you speak your truth, you stick to it, and if there's something that you may have gotten wrong, it's okay to change your position. I was wrong about one thing on the air maybe like 4 years ago, and I was like, you know what? I don't agree with what I said anymore. So now I say, okay, I've changed my position after hearing some of the other people and what they believe about it. And after doing a little bit of research, I wasn't aware, and maybe my ignorance, caused me to think a certain way, but now I've got a new way of thinking, and thank you for the enlightenment. It goes both ways. You can't stick your head in the sand at the same time. Be afraid to speak up. So I hope that helps all of you out there who are being trolled, because the more you talk, the more people troll you. Like, I'm not like that. Like, I will post, and I don't ever post and try to look at the comments. I don't care what the comments are. Sometimes people are like, girl, the video got 3,000 views in like 20 minutes before you even got off your Facebook Live. I was like, well, I expected it to. That's why after I got off the live, I got off of Facebook. Never went back like 5 days. But yeah, speak your truth. If you can't speak your truth, then maybe you don't need to put it out there. I don't know, y'all.
Wonderful.
Think about it. It's not for the faint.
You are a delight. You are such a delight. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
That is going to help someone. I know.
Conversation that we're having too.
Yes, I'm quite sure. Thank you so much. Autumn, can you please give us just a couple of nuggets, since I heard, or Birdie told me you're really good at branding. You can give us some nuggets on how to elevate your brand.
So number one, I'll say that nowadays, especially with millennial new brands, people believe that your brand value is everything. If you do not have a strong brand, if you don't have a strong brand identity, you probably won't exist long. And that is, I think, something that with Detroit Dough that we did was incredible. And so I think more than anything, it's, invest in your brand first. If you have $1,000 and it costs you 200 to file an LLC, the rest of the 800 should be on branding. And here's why. A lot of people believe that strong brands equate to strong sales. And people are creatures of habit. They want to invest their money in things that other people are invested in. And so if you look like you've made a bunch of sales already, guess what? More sales are going to come, right? And so again, branding is more than a logo, and it's more than colors. It's about your brand voice. It's about the different typeface that you use, everything, to the way that you email people, all the way to, what physical brand pieces are you going to use. Like one thing with Detroit Dough that at first I thought it was outlandish, but we ended up investing in a Mercedes-Benz Sprinter van, completely wrapped. It's all pink and it has cookie dough scoops. And at first it was like $60,000 for a van plus the wrap. Like, I don't know if I can do it. And we needed it, right? We needed it for like local deliveries, but I mean, we weren't going to do too much other than like delivering stuff, right? But that pink van has like helped us tremendously. I get pictures all the time. Oh, I see your van over here. It's over here. Oh, that's Detroit Dough. Oh, I'm sure Detroit Dough is on to big things, right? And it was a huge like marketing tool for us that's paid off tenfold. So invest in your branding. I think that it's so key. I think that's kind of number one. Number two, understand that social media isn't everything. There's social media brands that have 10,000 followers on Instagram and don't make $1,000 in sales a month. And then there's people who have less than 1,000 followers who are making tens and $20,000s of dollars a month. As long as you have a strong brand and you represent yourself well on social, there's opportunity for sales anywhere. So don't kind of get caught up in the vanity metrics. Everyone looks for them. Not everybody is going to be that 10,000 or 10,000 following brand, but you can definitely have strong revenue despite. So that would be another nugget. But yeah, branding is everything. I'm telling you guys, invest in it. It's going to pay off tenfold.
Thank you for that. Now let me hop over to a question from Cyril. He asked, in a world full of technology and social media, how do you stay focused, not swayed by public opinion?
Is that a question for anybody?
For anybody, yes.
Public opinion. Okay, well, I like to form my own opinion first before, like, sometimes, let me just take my own personal life, since this is COVID and we're all in lockdown, so I'm in my bedroom, obviously. So my husband says, oh, guess what, babe? This is what happened. I said, don't tell me, just tell me the facts. Let me formulate my own opinion. He'd be like, okay, and then tell me what you think. I pretty much handle everything like that. Let's just say if there's anything that's socially hot, I don't like to hear what the pundits have to say. I like to hear what NPR has to say about it, or the Associated Press, the unbiased, the public radio, they're usually just giving the facts and not their opinion behind it. Commentary, like what I do on television, is my opinion behind the story. So since I'm normally the one giving the opinion and people normally take my commentary and formulate their opinion based on mine, I like to just hear what the actual fact is and determine, based on everything that I know in my background and my own perception about it, how do I relate to the story? So you have to be careful in social media, because you'll find yourself caught up, because everyone has an opinion and everyone's opinion is slightly different. Let's just take my party. I happen to be a Democrat. I mean, maybe I guess I used to be a Democrat. I don't know if I'm a Democrat now, because once I say I'm a Democrat, then everybody who is a Democrat tells me maybe you're not a Democrat. You're not as progressive as me. So then you have to think about, well, am I going to doubt my own political perspective because somebody else that's more Democratic than me thinks differently? No, I'm just going to say I'm going to ignore what their opinions are and not get caught up and be like, I know what I stand for and my policies. And so maybe I just have to vote along party lines where the person votes, where the person does more of what I believe I want for this country. So you have to do everything like that. You can't get caught up in social media. It's the media.
Okay. Thank you. Right. That's very helpful. And Andre says, go blue. And Marlene, opinions. She says opinions are just that, opinions, and we should not personalize them.
Exactly.
So yes. And Michael says hello. So hi. Yes, I agree with that. Stacy, can you talk about how people can become better allies in both in and out of pop media?
Sure. So definitely being what an ally is, that is a friend. And if you think of what friends do, you know, they help you, they speak up for you, they are there with you through it. So if you're really going to be an ally, then you have to embrace all of the organization or the system, and it's good and bad. People, issues that you like and issues that you don't like. If you want to be an ally, you have to be a part of the conversation. And so that looks different for different people, of course. But I think the main thing is speaking up. I think Nyanza earlier talked about the sign at the protest in Houston that said silence is, can't remember what exactly.
Silence is acceptance.
Acceptance, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that if you're not speaking up, then it's like you accept it. And we need, like, people can't do it on their own. We need others to hop on board and say, no, this isn't right. That's what an ally is, in my opinion. I don't need you to like put your name on a building or my name on a building. I need you like actively doing something in the community that would help me. So whether it's making a phone call for me, speaking up at a meeting with something that you know isn't helpful to me, that's very helpful. So the media, those are personal issues, but in terms of the media, it's again, speaking up. You can email. We can't just be, at ease and just allow things to continue going as they are, because it's not working. So.
It sounds like all three of you have said similar things. Stacy, Autumn was talking about earlier. It doesn't matter if it's a small act, as long as you're doing something towards making a difference, that counts. So all three of you have said something in common around making a difference to move the needle of inclusion. So yes, I definitely get your point. Now, I would just like to ask each one of you, I'm a big fan of positive affirmations, because I have to say something to make myself get going sometimes on tough days, and even regular days. I have to say, Zakiya, you got this. You bad girl, you can do it. So I want to know, what positive affirmations do you say to yourself to get you going? Because you guys are some bad sisters and you're doing a lot of positive things in the world. So what positive affirmations do you say? You could just name off a couple. Do you say to yourself in the morning, night, whatever? What do you say to yourself? Starting with Nyanza, what do you say? What positive affirmations do you say to? I know you say something to yourself.
I was trying to act like I didn't know I was going to go first, but I kind of did. Okay, so my affirmations have changed. Now, when I was in law school, when I was in law school, I say, I'm a lawyer, not a paralegal. when I was trying to motivate myself to do it.
Okay.
I'm a lawyer, not a paralegal.
Right.
Now it's more like, I just say, you got it. It's yours. Take it.
Okay.
You know, it's not one of, I always say, if it's for me, it's mine, period. You know, and if I think about everything like that, like every audition, everything I've gone out for, I always say, if it's for me, which meaning if God has this for me, then it's mine. I don't have to do anything, but just keep going. And that's it.
Yes.
That needs to work in all aspects of my life.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I like it. Stacey, what about you? I'm
say
sorry, I'm looking over here, then over here. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay. Do it scared, do it anyway. So I have things that I want to do. I have visions of things that I want to see come true. So I'm scared with some of those things because it's new. This is new for me, like filmmaking. And I'm going to do it anyway, scared. So admitting that I'm scared, do it scared and do it anyway. Just do it. You can't, you have to challenge yourself, and it is uncomfortable. It can be scary, but once you take those steps and get through it, then you're on the other side and you've accomplished what you wanted to accomplish. So it's worth it.
Yes. Autumn, what about you?
Yeah. So honestly, I choose a theme for the week, and I pray on it and I repeat it. And I think we all know that repetition is really what makes it stick, right? It's not whatever we say, right? It's how many times we say it. We've got to say it long enough for us to believe it. So this week it's been all about alignment and increase, allowing God to increase whatever I'm doing. He's going to multiply what I've been doing. This week there's going to be an increase some way, somehow. And I'm not sure where, I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but there's an increase, right? And so every morning I wake up, when I pray, it's all about increase this week. When I'm sad and I'm looking at numbers and things aren't panning out, it's about increase this week, right? And I'm very much about discipline. I don't think that, you know, we as people, we want to be lazy. We want to cry. We want to allow things to fall apart. It's natural, right? But we have to have the discipline to say, we're here, right? And so to me, it's all about what I decide to focus on the week or the month or whatever. So
I like that. The consistency and repetition. We know that is the key and increase. Cyril said, my words for me, who knows is better than me. Okay. Thank you for that. And now we're just going to start with the top and ask you for your final thoughts. So, Nyenza, can you please share with us your final thoughts?
Yes, my final thoughts are, you know, we are at a crossroads in America, and now more than ever, I think that the young people, I'm not talking about people like me, I'm like 100, but the younger people, the same way that they had, you know, when they occupied Wall Street, those that got the bankers to change. You know, whenever we have the protests that are out there now, I feel like the takeaways are making sure that we continue the conversation, because you always hear about the injustices, the social injustices, and, you know, Black people getting, unarmed Black men being killed. But we need to follow through with the execution. We are good for marching. We are good for sitting in and protesting and doing flyers and doing Twitter and doing all of that. But we need to see this through to the end, because what we don't want to happen is what happened with Ferguson and all these other cases, is for the men that are held to account, the police officers, to be held to account, and no one's talking about it anymore next year because the prosecution now has charging instruments and now they're going to trial. Do you know that those police officers in the Freddie Gay case were not guilty? You think about that? But they didn't tell us, like the year and a half later, what the result was of all that protesting. So we need to make sure that the movement stays focused and has enough tenacity to see this through. Don't let the prosecutors up. Don't let the judges up. Don't let the jurors up. Don't let the police up. Don't let anybody get their knee up off of George Floyd until it's time for them to be held to account. Because oftentimes we have all these headlines, but people sometimes have to go back to work, go back to school. I could only march one day because I have a mortgage. So if I have to work and I can't get on Facebook every day because I have to go to work, then somebody has to be able to carry the torch all the way through to the finish line to make sure that every single person that is involved in all these atrocities against Black men and Black women and brown women are held to account, because we always forget about what happens. I say that all the time on the news. It's like, okay, so what happened with all these police officers? I don't see anybody being incarcerated. Nobody did a follow. No one in the media does a follow-up story. No one ever decides to sensationalize the trials of these police officers that are charged. No, not a single network has ever followed a police officer's trial in open court so that we could see what's going on in these jurors' minds. So when they are able to get it out of the limelight, then they can say not guilty. And then the same thing happens over again. So we have to see this one all the way through. So those are my final thoughts. Please, see it through to the end. I don't want to go out there and have to march with my mask on again. I just want this to all get along. That's all I want to say. Can we get along? But then I still,
right.
And my last thing, and I'll shut up. Can we stop calling Black people people of color?
Yeah.
I just want to put out there. I said this to the Texas A&M Association of Former Students podcast that I was on, and I had to let the white people that are there know, I'm not a person of color. I want you to see me as a Black woman, because if you see me and call me a Black woman and not a person of color, then you will understand that I come from slaves. And so then you will understand why I say that Black Life Matters, because we were swung from trees and hung from trees. So people of color got to come over here, immigrating over here. They came over here by choice, not by force. So whenever you're in the conversation with people that are not Black and they say, oh, we have to be up for all people of color, say, well, we need to stand up for Black people today. We appreciate the support of other people of color, but Black people have their own plight that's a little bit different from everybody else's. Okay, that's all I have to say.
Yeah,
please like this. Please like this. This was a dynamic panel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Adam.
Yeah. One thing I'll say is it's time to invest in Black women. Open up your purse.
Okay.
Step down. Open up the door. It's time to invest in Black women. And I mean that from a business sense. I mean that from an educational sense. I mean that from a mental health sense. We need to invest in Black women. Black women have done so much for just in general the framework of what America is and the framework of just about everything. And it's time for Black women to shine. And we've been knocking on the doors and we've been polite about it. And I'm now seeing Black women not be as polite. But the main thing is we need you to step away. We need you to give us the seat, right? And we need you to open up your purse. So that's my biggest thing, is to make sure that you give us the opportunity for us to shine, right? It only works when, two people work together, right? So we're here, we're ready, we're knocking on the door. It's time for you now to invest in us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Autumn. And Stacey, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts are to use the media to hold people and systems accountable. So we do need to change laws and policies, but that sometimes there will be resistance. And so many times it's a struggle to do that. However, if you use the media and you're basically putting on blast these people and the light is shining on them and they're looking immoral to the world, then they're more apt to make change. Such an example with George Floyd's video, because it was so gruesome, then everybody can see, oh, of course that's not right. And so it leads to change. But if you don't have that accountability in the media to shine light on issues, then I think it's harder for laws and policies to change. And that's what we need at the root of it. But I think it's the media that can help influence those changes.
Absolutely. And my final thoughts are to the leaders of organizations, Fortune 500 companies, nonprofits that are watching this live right now. We are all professional speakers that you see today. So when you're looking for a speaker to come speak to your organization about inclusive cultures or any array of topics, you see four dynamic women right now who are entrepreneurs who will be happy to come to you to talk to your organizational leadership and your employees. So, as Autumn just mentioned, use your pocketbook. Hire us to come talk to your organization. You see what we're capable of. So I would impart that upon you is to tap into that and reach out to any one of us as a panelist or to come in as a speaker for your next event. I will leave you with that. And change starts by having uncomfortable conversations. Additionally, I have a masterclass coming up. If you like to learn how to use your authentic voice, you can go to, what is it, Andrew? The thriveclass.com and sign up. It's free and you can learn more about using your authentic voice. I would like to thank you for tuning in. This is Zakiya with Game Changer Chat, and we'll see you next Thursday for another LinkedIn Live. Have peace, love, and blessings.